Amrita Pravaha Bhashya means commentary on this chapter. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes this 7th chapter as follows. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order of life in the month of Magh, which corresponds to our January, February. And then he went to Jagannath Puri in the month of Falguna, which corresponds to our February and March. He saw the Dol Yatra festival during the month of Falguna, and in the month of Chaitra, he liberated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Then, during the month of Vaishakha, what does that correspond to? Lochan.
Sorry, what was that?
Vaishakha.
Vaishakha months.
The month of Vaishakha.
Which months is that coming?
Yeah, what does that correspond to in our, what we know? January, February, March, April, May, what? Come on, you should know.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. The other two, they told us, but in this one they don't tell us. However, during the month of Vaishakha, he began to tour South India. When he proposed to travel to South India alone, Sri Nityananda Prabhu gave him a Brahmin assistant named Krishnadas. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was beginning his tour, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him 4 sets of clothes and requested him to see one Ramananda Roy, who was residing at that time on the banks of the river Godavari. Along with other devotees, Nityananda Prabhu accompanied the Lord to Alalanath. But there, Lord Chaitanya left them all behind. He told them to go back. And he went ahead with only the Brahmin Krishnadas. The Lord began chanting the mantra, Krishna, 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 hey. You know that one?
Yes.
Krishna, 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 hey. In whatever village the Lord spent the night, whenever a person came to see him in his shelter, the Lord implored him to preach Krishna consciousness movement. So, we are all part of this Krishna consciousness movement, and it is our main duty to preach the Krishna consciousness movement. We should never forget this. We became devotees because somebody preached to us. Somebody went out and chanted in the streets. I mean, that's how I became a devotee. Actually, I was living in Trinidad, where I was born, West Indies, and my mother was living in New York City, in America. And she wrote me a letter saying she wants me to come to New York. And I didn't want to go. I thought, what is all the big fuss about New York? I'm much happier in Trinidad. Simple, Paradise Island. And I really didn't want to go because I was surrounded by my friends and so on. And I told some of my friends, my mother wants me to come to New York, but I don't want to go. And a couple of them said, let me go instead. I'll be your mother's son. I said, I will not do. So reluctantly I came to New York, but just see, by coming to New York, I met the devotees shortly after I arrived, chanting in the streets of New York City. And I was so attracted. I spoke with them and they invited me to come to the temple. And I was going to the temple regularly every Sunday because they had a Sunday feast. Hundreds of people would come. And then one Sunday I went, Srila Prabhupada came. And I got to hear him speak. And after that, I knew what I had to do. I wanted to follow him. So by his devotees going out in the street, I became. So we should do the same for others. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone came to see him, he would implore them to preach the Krishna consciousness movement. And after teaching the people of one village, the Lord would proceed to other village. In this way, he was trying to increase the number of devotees. Prabhupada said, it is the business of the spiritual master to increase the number of devotees. In this way, the Lord finally reached Kurma Sthana. Kurma Sthana. While there, he bestowed his causeless mercy upon one Brahmana named Kurma. And he also cured another Brahman named Vasudeva, who was suffering from leprosy. After curing this Brahman leper, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received the title Vasudevamrita Prada. They give him a new name, Vasudevamrita Prada, which means one who delivered nectar to the leper Vasudeva. So we begin. Text 1. Danyam tam nomi chaitanyam Vasudevam dayadradi Nashtakushtam rupa pushtam Bhakti tushtam chakaraya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being very compassionate towards a Brahmin named Vasudeva, cured him of leprosy. He transformed Vasudeva into a beautiful man, satisfied with devotional service. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the glorious Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. After delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Lord decided to go south, to South India, to preach. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had accepted the renounced order during the waxing fortnight of the month of Magh, which we said was January, February. And during the following month of Falgun, which was this February, March, he went to Jagannath Puri and resided there. How Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ended up going to Jagannath Puri is a wonderful story. It is given by Vrindavan Das Thakur. After Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he only wanted to go to Vrindavan. But when he took sannyas, most of his devotees didn't know because he didn't tell them. He told just few people. He told Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, I don't know who else, and he told his mother. And of course, he didn't even tell his wife, Vishnu Priya Devi. And when he took, in the morning, the night before, Vishnu Priya came to him and she was very morose, sad. So he said, Devi, what's wrong? And she said, well, I heard a rumor. You know how rumors go. People talk. He says, she said, I heard a rumor that you're going to take sannyas. He says, why do you listen to rumors? That hasn't happened. So besides, in this life, we all have to cry. And early next morning, he got up and he left the house, passed by his mother, Sachi Devi, standing. He said Sachi Devi was standing like a statue. She couldn't believe my Nimai is leaving. She didn't tell, we don't know who she told, but somehow Vishnu Priya heard about it. And he went out, went to the Ganges and swam across the Ganges River, got to the other side, and proceeded to Katwa. There he took sannyas. So after taking sannyas, he wants to go to Vrindavan. But Nityananda Prabhu is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's other self. He taught the devotees, Mahaprabhu is going to leave and all these devotees don't know. When they find out, they'll be devastated. So he tricked Mahaprabhu into making a U-turn, coming back. And all the devotees, Nityananda Prabhu informed all the devotees to come and meet Mahaprabhu for the last time. Of course, it's not really the last time, but before he goes. So everyone came except Vishnu Priya, except his wife. She was not allowed to come. And when a person takes sannyas, Prabhupada said that is like civil suicide. He's dead to the wife. So she was not allowed to come, but everyone else came, and Mother Sachi, his mother, came. And when she saw him, it was the first time. He was shaved up, clean shaved head, and wearing saffron. She fell on the ground crying. It is a very emotional scene. And Mahaprabhu came to her and he kneeled down before her and he says, Mother, this body belongs to you because you gave me this body, right? You get the body from the mother. He said, this body belongs to you. Somehow or other, in a moment of madness, I took sannyas. This is how he's telling her. Somehow or other, like, I don't know what happened, what came over me. I took sannyas. But if you want, you just tell me, you order me, I will give up this sannyas and come back home. He said this, and all the devotees around here in Mahaprabhu say this. How much love he has for his mother, Sachimata. That's why the devotees like to chant, Jai Sachinandan. It's a very affectionate name. So Sachimata heard him say this, that you order me and I'll give up sannyas and come back home. She said, no, I can't let you do that. If you do that, people will talk. They will say unpleasant things about you. So I couldn't tolerate to hear people talking bad about you. So she said, but I have an idea. Why don't you go to Jagannath Puri? Because Jagannath Puri, Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra happens every year. Today there's Jagannath Rath Yatra in Paris. But the big one is in Puri every year. It's already passed. So she said, and the devotees from Bengal, many of them go to Rath Yatra every year, on pilgrimage. They walk. They walk for about a month. Because 500 years ago, there was no train, no buses, no cars. So if you want to go, you have to walk. So she said, but every year, some devotees go, and if you stay there in Puri, when they come back, they can bring me news about you. Because I'd like to know how you are doing. So Mahaprabhu smiled and said, very good idea. So, Sachimata ki jai. That's how we went up in Puri. So during the month of Chaitra, Prabhupada says is in the synonym, Chaitra is the month, sometime between March and April, corresponds, March, April. So during the month of Chaitra, while living at Jagannath Puri, the Lord delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And in the beginning of the next month, which is Vaishakha, so that must be April, May, right? Some of April, some of May. So the Lord decided to go to South India. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called all of his devotees together in Puri, and holding them by the hand, he humbly informed them, you are all more dear to me than my life. I can give up my life, but I cannot give you up. It is too difficult for me. This is the affection of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, you are all my friends. and you have properly executed the duties of friends by bringing me here to Jagannath Puri and giving me the chance to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. Now, I beg all of you for one little bit of charity. Please, give me permission to leave for a tour of South India. I shall go to search out my brother Vishwarupa. So please forgive me. But I want to go alone. I don't want to take anyone with me. Mahaprabhu is so expert. Although he knew, he's omniscient, he knew Vishwarup had already gone back to Godhead. But news hadn't traveled around. But he tells them, I want to see my brother. So they all will say, oh yes, of course. Family? They cannot object. That's why he says, I want to search him out, to find out where he is. But he already knows where he is. So he says, until I return from Setubandha, that's a place, Lochan, you know Setubandha?
That's the tip, right?
The tip of South India. He says, until I return from Setubandha, all of you, my dear friends, should remain here in Jagannath Puri. Oh, here it is. Knowing everything, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was well aware that Vishwarup had already passed away. But a pretense of ignorance was necessary so that he could go to South India and liberate the people of South India. So upon hearing this small request from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees became very unhappy. They don't want him to go. So but they remained silent, with sullen faces, sad faces. Like I said, he was expert. He said, I want to see my brother. You can all understand, you're all family men. And they said, yes, of course. But they don't want him to go. So they're reluctantly, they're unhappy.
So this means it's okay to lie sometimes.
Yes, of course.
Yesterday we heard it, never lie.
Not that is not the absolute truth. We actually in Mahabharata, Krishna requested Yudhisthira to lie. He told Yudhisthira, I want you to go to Dronacharya. Dronacharya was the military leader of the Kuru's army, the opposite side. This is during the battle of Kurukshetra. You see, the culture was, during the day, they would fight, the two armies, Pandavas and Kauravas. They would fight. And at night, they would go and visit one another in the tents and take, in a friendly way. But next morning, fight again. And they're fighting to the death. But so Krishna, he tells Yudhishthira, I want you to go tonight and tell Dronacharya that his son Ashwatthama is dead. And Yudhishthira said, but Krishna, that is not true. Ashwatthama is not dead. how can you ask me to go and tell a lie, speak a lie? He says, I've never spoken a lie in my entire life. Yudhishthira was also called Dharmaraj. He was very religious, very staunch. He said, I've never told one lie in my life. And Krishna, you telling me to go and speak a lie? How can I do this? Krishna says, you see, I know he's omniscient. Krishna knows everything. He says, Dronacharya will not be killed. If he gets news that his son has died, he will lose all desire to fight. And he is the general. He will lose all desire, he will put down his hands, and then it'll be easy for him to be killed. But if you don't do this, we will lose the war. Because the Pandavas' army was outnumbered, something like 5-1. So Yudhishthira said, okay. And reluctantly he went and told the lie to Drona. They said, some people say, from that day on, up until that day, Yudhishthira Maharaj's chariot, the wheels never touched the ground, floated. Because he was so dharmic. But the Vaishnavas say, from that day on, his wheels touched the ground. And people think, well, it's because he told a lie. His chariot couldn't float anymore. But the devotees say, it's because he hesitated. He hesitated to tell that lie. Krishna had told him to do it. To do what Krishna says, that is real dharma. That's why Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, give up all your dharmas. Sarva dharmam parityajam mamekam sharanam. Give up all dharma and just surrender unto me. That is paro dharma. That is the supreme dharma. First him, he had a question?
Well, actually, it was, excuse me, Prabhuji, it was half a lie, in one sense.
Yes.
Because, as you know,
this is semantics.
no, because you see, you know the story of...
I know the story, but I shortened it. Vasudev?
Unfortunately, we see devotees using this Krishna asking Dharmaraj to lie as a license for lying. Whenever they lie, they say, oh yeah, well, Krishna also asked so we see this, isn't there a danger?
So
Because
what can be done?
Krishna only asked once in the whole life of Dharmaraj.
I know. But Krishna does many things that's not, like when during the battle, Karna's chariot wheel broke, or he got stuck in the mud, and he got down off his chariot. And Karna was very powerful. Some say he was better than Arjuna. And that's why he was recruited by Duryodhana. And his wheel was stuck, he got down off the chariot, and Krishna is driving Arjuna's chariot. He told Arjuna, kill him now. This now, according to the rules of warfare back then, if the opponent is off his chariot, you should get down off your chariot. You should be equal. So Krishna, Arjun, he didn't hesitate. He knew. He pulled his bow and arrow and he aimed it at Karna. And Karna says, Arjun, what you doing? I'm on the ground. Krishna says, kill him. So, whatever Krishna does or says, that is all right. So, of course, we shouldn't take Krishna's telling you this to lie as a license to just lie like anything. No. But I like to say that rules were made to be broken. But you have to know when to break the rules. For Krishna Seva, if Krishna asks you to do it, you can do anything. Actually, during Prabhupada's time, we had an experience in Laguna Beach. The whole temple, the whole community of devotees became involved in illicit activity. They got connected with a drug dealer. And all the men, all the disciples of Prabhupada, they became mules. Mules means they go to Afghanistan, get the drugs, and smuggle it back into America, and give it to the drug lord, and they would get money. The devotees themselves weren't using the drugs, but they were doing this to get money. And somehow or other they justified it in themselves that we could do this. Yeah. And we'll give some of the money to Krishna. When Prabhupada heard of this, he was shocked. He said, you cannot do this. They actually went to him. Some of them went to him saying, trying to plead their case. And Prabhupada said, no. And one said, but I thought you could do anything for Krishna. And Prabhupada said, yes, if Krishna asks you personally to do it, or if your spiritual master tells you to do it. But I was very firm on this. You cannot do this. He said, you are saying that you can. He said, you cannot say that you can kill cows for Krishna. That's how Prabhupada equated that. Anyway, it was an unfortunate, dark period in the history of ISKCON. But they sent me to that temple to clean it up and rectify it. So, you have another one?
No, just a comment. There's another reason why Krishna resorted to extreme action like lying or inducing Duryodhana. This is so symbolic because Duryodhana symbolizes truthfulness, which is one of the four pillars.
Duryodhana symbolizes truth?
Sorry, I need to say Yudhishthira.
Oh, I'm going to say, where do you read that?
Now, Duryodhana, that is the reason. Krishna said that in the Mahabharata somewhere, because Duryodhana has done so many illicit activities, he was the cheat of cheats.
Yeah.
His
name, Duryodhana's name means dirty fighter. He doesn't play by the rules.
So when you're dealing with cheats, then you're allowed to cheat.
For Krishna. This is the thing. Just like so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he's non-different from Krishna. Brajendra Nandana Jay Sachisuta Hoila say Balaram Hoilo Nitai. So here Mahaprabhu he knows how his devotees' hearts are. He knows if I tell them I want to go south, they won't let me go. And he doesn't want to see them unhappy. He says, you all are more dear to me than life. But very tactfully he says, I want to see my brother. I want to find out my brother, Vishnu. He left home and took sannyas and went touring. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Mahaprabhu knew, being omniscient, that Vishnu had already passed away and gone back to Godhead. But Mahaprabhu is telling a little lie. So now, as Mahaprabhu told this, that he wants to go on, everyone's unhappy, Nityananda Prabhu, he spoke up first. He says, how is it possible for you to go alone? You don't want to take anyone with you? Who can tolerate this? Let one or two of us at least go with you. Otherwise, you may fall into the clutches of thieves and rogues along the way. And they may be whomever you like, but at least two persons should go with you. In other words, you can choose two people, two devotees. Nityananda says, indeed, I know all the paths to the different places of pilgrimage. Because when Nityananda Prabhu was a boy, one sannyasi came to their home, and his parents, what's his name? What's his father's name? Harai Pandit.
Harai Pandit, yes.
They received a traveling mendicant, a sannyasi, in their house. Fed him and everything. He spent the night, and the next day, Nityananda's parents, father said, what can I do for you? Is there anything? You need anything? I can give you anything? This is the culture. Sannyasi comes to your home, you have to give him something. So the sannyasi said, the sannyasi was looking at little Nityananda, looking at him and captivated by his beauty. He said, well, there's one thing you can give me. And the father said, anything. What do you want? He said, give me your son. And Harai Pandit collapsed on the ground. He fainted. But he cannot say no, because I told him anything you want. So Nityananda went touring, traveling with his sannyasi, and he went to all the holy places of pilgrimage before he came and met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he said here, I know all the paths to the different places of pilgrimage in South India. You just order me and I'll go with you. Nityananda Prabhu was so attached to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the Lord replied, look, I am simply a dancer. Gaura Nataraj, he's the best dancer. He says, I am simply a dancer and you are the wire puller. You know, like puppets, with strings, they make the puppets dance. He said, you are the wire puller. And however you pull the wires to make me dance, I shall dance in that way. After accepting the order of sannyas, I wanted to go to Vrindavan, but you tricked me and took me to the house of Advaita Prabhu instead. So he's reminding Nitai, you weren't straight with me. You tricked me. Now you want to come with me? So he says, while on the way to Jagannath Puri, you also broke my danda, my sannyas danda. I know, I know everything. Krishna says, I know everything. He says, I know that all of you have great affection for me, but some of the things you do disturb my activities. Jagadananda is sitting here. He wants me to enjoy bodily sense gratification. There's a special rasa between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagadananda Pandit. And out of fear, here's Mahaprabhu saying, Jagadananda is here, he wants me to enjoy bodily sense gratification, and out of fear, I do whatever he tells me. And if sometimes I do something against his desire, then out of anger, he will not talk to me for 3 days. These pastimes are wonderful. Being a sannyasi, it is my duty to lie down on the ground and take a bath 3 times a day, even during the winter. But over here, Mukunda, he becomes very unhappy when he sees me, when he sees my severe austerities. Nityananda Prabhu, he broke the danda and threw it in the Ganges. He said, what is this nonsense? How can you be carrying a danda? You are not different from Krishna. So Mahaprabhu externally showed some anger towards Nityananda Prabhu, but the Prophet says internally he was happy. He knew the reason Nityananda Prabhu did that. And Jagadananda Pandit, in Krishna-lila, he is one of the queens, one of the principal queens in Dwarka, Satyabhama. And Satyabhama behaves the same way towards Krishna, throwing tantrums, and if she doesn't get what she wants. So Jagadananda, he would do the same thing to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu says, if I do something against his desire, out of anger, he will talk to me for 3 days. And he will fast until Mahaprabhu has to come and beg him, Jaggi, come and cook something for me. And that would get him out of his maya. This is how Mahaprabhu deals with his loving devotees. He says, of course, Mukunda here, he's unhappy when he sees my severe activities. And of course, he doesn't say anything, but I know that he's very unhappy within. And upon seeing him unhappy, I become twice as unhappy. And although I'm in the renounced order of life, over here we have Damodar. He's a brahmachari, And still he keeps a stick in his hand just to educate me. he has to satisfy all these different devotees. According to Damodar, I am still a neophyte as far as social etiquette is concerned, and therefore he does not like my independent nature. Mahaprabhu is preaching, he's teaching the devotees. He's using these other devotees' example, their behavior, to teach the other devotees and to teach us. He doesn't like my independent nature. Damodar Pandit and others, they are more advanced in receiving the mercy of Lord Krishna, and therefore they are independent of public opinion. And as such, they all want me to enjoy sense gratification, even though it is unethical. But since I am just a poor sannyasi, I cannot abandon the duties of the renounced order, and so I follow these devotees very strictly. Prabhupada gives a little purport. He said, a brahmachari is supposed to assist a sannyasi, and therefore a brahmachari should never try to instruct a sannyasi. This is the etiquette. Consequently, Damodar Pandit should not have advised Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about his duty. So he's chastising Damodar in this gathering. So he says, you should all therefore remain here in Nilachal, Jagannath Puri, for some days, while I tour the sacred places of pilgrimage alone. Kaviraj Goswami concludes this little section. He says, actually, the Lord is controlled by the good qualities of all his devotees, but on the pretense of attributing their faults, he is tasting their good qualities. Prabhupada gives a purport. He says, all of the accusations made by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu against his beloved devotees actually showed his great appreciation of their intense love for him. Yet, he mentions these faults one after another as if he were offended by their intense affection. He's not really offended, but he's teaching. This is Mahaprabhu's Lila is sometimes called his Acharya Lila. He teaches by example. He's not really displeased. These are his eternal associates, and he knows their hearts. The personal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes behaved contrary to regulative principles out of intense love for the Lord. This is the difference. We cannot say that everything we do is out of love. And because of their love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes himself violated the regulated principles of a sannyasi. In the eyes of the public, such violations are not good. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so controlled by his devotees' love that he was obliged to break some of the rules. Although accusing them, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was indirectly indicating that he was very satisfied with their behavior in pure love of Godhead. Therefore, in the few verses back, in verse 27, we are now in verse 29. Therefore, in verse 27, he mentions that his devotees and associates place more importance on love of Krishna than on social etiquette. Right? Remember that verse? Oh, yes. He says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that Damodar and others, they are more advanced in receiving the mercy of Krishna. And therefore they are independent of public opinion. You know? Like Srila Prabhupada. He's independent of public opinion. Prabhupada did some things that even some of his godbrothers criticized him for. But all of it, Prabhupada, everything Prabhupada did was out of love. Yeah. Love for Krishna. Love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, he would say, the dogs may bark, but the caravan keeps on going. So, unfortunately, we have to stop here. But this is such lovely pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Again, like Vasudeva said, this is not a license for us to break the etiquette, disregard the regulations and rules. No. We have to follow. If we don't, then it becomes a disturbance. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he says, Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Ancharatriki, Vidim Vina, Aikantiki Hare Bhakti, Utpataiva Kalpate. He says, doing devotional service, but not according to Shruti, Smriti, and Puranadi. Not following the scripture. He said, that is simply a disturbance. Utpataiva. That is a disturbance in society. So we are all Rupanugas, followers of Rupa Goswami. So we have to follow. So this is such a nice point that Mahaprabhu was actually satisfied by his devotees, his associates. After all, they're all Nitya Siddhas. Narottam Das Thakur, Mahajan, he says in one song, Gaurangera Sangi Gani, Nitya Siddha Korimani. You should know that all the associates of Mahaprabhu, they are Nitya Siddhas. They are eternally perfect. They have they've come down just to assist in his pastime, to participate in his Sankirtan movement. But if they do something that seems to be going against, don't don't be judgmental, because it's only out of intense love for Mahaprabhu they're behaving like that. So although Mahaprabhu is externally accusing them, he singled them out, Jagadananda, Damodar, Mukunda, actually he's praising them. He's appreciating their affection. Prabhupada says he was indirectly indicating that he was very satisfied with their behavior in pure love of Godhead. Actually, who is it? Maybe it's Prahlad Maharaj says, one cannot understand the activities of a pure Vaishnava. He's moving on the divine energy. Krishna says so. They're completely under the Yoga Maya. And we are under Mahamaya. So, we shall stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Agnideva Prabhu ki jai.
Mm.